It's Hollie's Hotspurs, welcome back. Talking Tottenham every week, no better place to be sat. If it's a win, lose, draw, we'll be here for a chat. Best believe we tackle topics like Romero at the back. Heung-min Son, what can go wrong when he's on form? It's a dream come.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Holly's Hotspurs. I know it's a Thursday, but we are in Holly's Hotspurs mode. And with me tonight to dissect a lot of stuff that's going on at Spurs, especially in the January transfer window, I'm joined by the amazing Michael Bridge. Michael, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Like I say, it's been an exciting time being a Spurs fan at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned January there. I think Spurs were the only club, apart from one or two others, mainly to have spent money. So, they obviously got two in. Timo Werner featuring quite a bit. Dragusin's not had much of an opportunity yet, but that's probably a good thing. It means, Van de Ven and Romero are back. So, looking forward to the last few months of the season.
Definitely. And I kind of starts on a good point, actually, because I want to talk about, obviously, dive straight into that January transfer window. What did you kind of make of it all in general?
Well, I mean, from a Sky perspective, it was something I just never had before, just nothing going on. Calvin Phillips nearly every day, and learning about profit and sustainability, finances, figures, clubs being really savvy, clubs just telling me and my colleagues, look, we're not doing anything this January, and sticking to that. So it was really interesting. So I'd be interested to see how that might change in the summer. But yeah, I mean, it was good for Spurs to have got some business done, and they got it done uncharacteristically early. So, I mean, look, we always want one or two more, don't we? But I think, you look at the squad now, touch wood, I think the key is just keeping everyone fit. So let's hope they do that. And, and if it does happen, that's a big if, because, the injuries, all clubs have had this season. So it's a big if, and keeping fingers crossed.
No, 100%. And that's what you think. I think for me, it's the first time I've seen Spurs be proactive. And that for me is really exciting, because obviously with the likes of getting these players in, we know we've kind of needed those kind of gaps for a very long time. I mean, pointing one straight away is probably Timo Werner. I mean, what did you kind of make of that when you heard that coming through the grapevine that he could potentially come to Spurs?
Well, I'll be honest with you, it came out of nowhere. It was something that Spurs were looking to do quite quickly. Then it was picked up originally by German media, and then confirmed by the sources here in London. And I just thought it was a very sensible loan, because obviously Son, I actually thought he was going to go all the way for South Korea. They should have done really. They're probably the best team in that tournament, and he'll be disappointed not to have reached the final, but it's not his fault. And it just feels like a bit of a no-risk loan, because they didn't pay a lot for him in terms of a loan fee. If they wanted to keep him, it wouldn't be a big fee. So that was a decent start. And of course, the centre half was the key. I mean, Ange Postecoglou said it to me and other Spurs-based journos week after week after week. He was very honest about, Davinson Sanchez was a bit of a risk, letting him go. Then he left. Romero getting, suspended, injured, Van de Ven injury. Clearly Spurs were light. So they've got cover now. But, I've seen a few tweets saying, Dragusin's barely played yet. But as I say, that's a good thing, really. And he's integrating into the squad week after week, day after day. So it's all positive.
I think that's the thing. I think we've just wanted those gaps kind of plugged, because, okay, at the moment we haven't seen a lot of Dragusin, but like you say, that's a good thing, because we've had those players in likes of Mickey Van de Ven and Romero back and not injured, because we know how awful life was when we didn't have them. But then we had players that stepped up in the likes of Davies. So it's kind of a good kind of place to be with Spurs. But I want to home in directly on Timo Werner, because obviously there's been a lot of chat about him. Will Ange get the best out of him? And I know you said, obviously, a lot of Spurs say it's a win-win in the sense that we don't necessarily have to keep him. But do you think the goals will come for Timo?
There's no guarantee. I mean, I interviewed him today. I mean, it's on Sky tomorrow at 7. I mean, I have to say, he's one of the nicest people I've ever interviewed. He's a lovely guy. But, I mean, you're looking at Wolves on Saturday. My prediction would be maybe Son would come in for him, and Bissouma maybe come in for Bentancur. Maybe a couple of changes. But that's what I would do if going by what I saw against Brighton. that's not to say he can't have a massive impact in the last couple of months of the season. It's down to him. You know, he's a very versatile forward. He's not necessarily a left winger. He's a forward who can play across all the front three. So he'll have a part to play. You know, he did all right at Man U on his debut, and he's probably a little bit rusty. So he could probably maybe do with a few bench games on the bench. So, but from what I hear about him, he's a great guy to have around. He's a really lovely guy. He's one of the most popular players already in the squad. So let's hope he can maybe put some goals together, because I think Spurs would certainly consider a permanent deal if he showed some form on the pitch.
I think that's the thing, because obviously he's already had a couple of assists, but it's the goals we kind of really want from him. And hopefully he does manage to do that. Because like I say, if he's a good character in and around the group of lads, then that's kind of what you want with the whole Ange ball and loving life at the moment. Because we've said it a lot this season, the Spurs fans, it's the vibes, and we all love the vibes. Yeah. And with that kind of being said, I know I've already spoken about proactiveness, and I think the one player to me that kind of screams that we're going to be doing something that is proactive, hopefully into the summer as well, is obviously Lucas Bergvall. I think for him, it's really nice to think that we're thinking ahead. Is that something you kind of agree with? Is that something that you think Spurs are looking to do maybe in the summer too?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Spurs are scouting England and Europe every week, you know, but then it's not just Tottenham, it's all the clubs, you know, there's a hell of a lot of talent out there, but top class talent, literally everyone wants the player. So, you know, Tottenham have to sell these players an idea. You know, I hate the word project in football, but, you know, a basis and a structure for a player to feel at home. And when they're of a certain age, that has to include the family, and the parents have to talk about it. And I think, you know, when they do come to the stadium, the training ground, you can't not be impressed. So long may it continue. I think, you know, over the last 18 months, I think, well, you know, a lot of deals that have been involved in with Fabio Paratici, Tottenham's current recruitment staff, you know, there've been a lot more hits than misses. And you probably couldn't say that a few years ago. So it's all looking very positive. I mean, I think maybe there'll be an emphasis on maybe the homegrown market as well in the summer. But the plans are already well underway for the summer, which is really, really warming to hear, you know, and Postecoglou and the recruitment team know exactly what they're looking for.
I think that's the nice thing about it. And I know obviously you mentioned about the stadium, the training facilities, but I think it's also that man Ange as well. So you talk about when you see the interviews and stuff, the players are saying, I spoke to Ange, I really like what's going on here. Do you still feel that kind of vibe when you have those press interviews with him and stuff? Because I know he still floats those jokes about sometimes.
Well, he did me massively, because, I mean, I asked him about how happy he was with his window. And then sort of like, we're all sort of writing it up while he's talking. And then all of a sudden he says how disappointed he is. So we all look up, like looking at each other, like, what's he upset about? Then obviously he mentions Lewis Hamilton. So, but yeah, I mean, that was brilliant. I mean, you know, it was a great presser. I mean, look, you know, all of us in the press conference, you know, we're in very privileged positions. And there are times where there have been Spurs coaches and managers in the past, and you're just literally dozing off. But with Ange, it can be 55 minutes and it feels like 15. So you have like the TV section first, like so myself and other broadcasters, and then, you know, a load of great written journalists, and that can be sometimes longer than the broadcast. And, you know, when the broadcast one's finished, I sort of, you know, relaxing a little bit and just taking it all in, you know, and just listening and enjoying what I'm hearing. You know, he's very infectious. He's got a great aura about him. Without him, you know, you don't have to put anything on with him. You know, it's, you know, sometimes I've seen the odd person sort of try and have a bit of a laugh with him, and you don't need to do that with him. He'll be funny. He'll make you laugh if he wants to, you know. So no, he's great. He's great for the club.
And I think that's the thing. I think us fans have for a long time have needed a manager like that to kind of unite us, because obviously last season it wasn't a fun time to be a Spurs fan, 100%. No. But it's definitely a lot better now. And obviously we are at that halfway point. And the all-important question that everybody's asking at the moment is whether we're going to get top 4. Do you feel like that's still reachable? Do you think we're still going to be able to battle it up there, sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're there at the moment. And I think Villa have picked up a few injuries. They're on a bit of a bad run at the moment. They're going to be back in Europe in a few weeks. And I think they can go all the way in that, because it's not the best level of quality, but it's a European trophy. So I think Emery is a master of that trophy. So they're going to be playing every Thursday night. That's going to take its toll. Manchester United, I'm still not fully convinced of how good they actually are. Good win at Villa. I mean, you know, hearing Gary Neville the other night, you know, he couldn't believe it to an extent of, you know, this United side going to Villa and winning. I just think it's down to Tottenham and their injuries. I think if they keep the bulk of the squad fit, then they will be favourites to get that fourth spot. And in fairness to Ange, you know, he often aims higher, you know, and, you know, he was saying to a colleague, not a colleague, but someone at Talk Sport talking about, you know, well, why not the title? I mean, you can imagine other managers in the past just completely dismissing anything remotely ambitious with Tottenham. So fair play to him on that. But if you gave me fourth now, I'd take it. You know, it would be a phenomenal achievement because everyone was telling me Spurs were going to finish in the bottom half when Harry Kane left. So it's going very well. And I think if it wasn't for those injuries against Chelsea and the red card, I think Tottenham would probably be second or third and right up there.
I would say that's my fault for going because it seems to me that's the only game I've been to this season that I've jinxed. So I've stayed well away and it's been all right. But
I stay at home Saturday.
I am, don't worry. It'll be the Palace game when it all goes wrong. But I think, like you said, I think I'm kind of on the same kind of level as I never would have thought we'd be where we are with a new manager after losing Harry Kane so late on as well in the window. It's crazy to think to see where we are. I mean, another question I guess would be, if we didn't finish top four, do you think a lot of fans would be disappointed, or do you think it's better to look at the bigger picture?
I think, you know, if you look at where managers finish in first seasons, you know, like Mikel Arteta had a lot to spend. He got a load of people out. He got a squad out and he brought a squad in. You know, Jurgen Klopp took time. So I think if Tottenham finished fifth or sixth, they'd still take that now, without a doubt. I think, look, the fact that Tottenham are fourth, you know, Spurs want to finish fourth, you know, and, you know, what comes with Champions League football, you know, in the FFP, PSR, whatever you want to call it, you know, it's extremely important and great finances. The Champions League's going to change next season with a new format, more games. I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know how they're going to fit it all in, trying to look at the new structure. But, you know, the Champions League would be amazing for Ange in his first season. Absolutely fantastic. And as I said before, you know, I think it could have been even better if the Madisons and the Van de Ven stayed fit. But, you know, if there are other supporters watching this channel now, they'll be saying, well, we had injuries. So, and that's probably a fair comment. So, you know, ultimately, I think we are fourth now. And in that case, it's ours to lose. I think we've got two good games coming up. Wolves and Palace, and the Palace will probably have a new manager by then. So they've got the new manager bug. But even so, they're at home. But I think that period of when we've got like Liverpool, Arsenal, City all in one, I think Newcastle's around that time as well. That will determine it, of course. Now everyone's saying how daunting that is, but I think that's daunting for them as well. We'll all give them a good game. So yeah, it's still very much wide open.
It really is, and it's not annoying, but it is annoying because the bar has been dealt so high for us now because of the way we started the start of the season for us Spurs fans. We're kind of thinking, can we? I mean, hopefully we can, because it would be nice to be obviously back in Europe, especially after Andrew's first kind of season. But obviously, for me, I kind of want to ask you another question in terms of who would be your player of the season so far, if that makes sense.
Yeah, brilliant question. Oh my goodness! Can we do a top three?
Go for it.
And this isn't in order. Just these are names popping out of my head. Vicario, Van de Ven would be one if he didn't have that injury. A Doggy would be up there if he didn't have his niggly injuries. I think Richarlison deserves a mention because of his goals over the last few months and his mental strength. Oh my goodness, it's really hard, isn't it? It's really hard. I think Vicario. I think, you know, friends of mine, you know, they wanted Lloris replaced a while ago, and I was very much of the opinion that replacing a goalkeeper is very hard, and it is very hard. And I think it's fair to say there was a bit of scepticism when Vicario joined because of the fee. But you wouldn't swap him for many keepers now, would you? I mean, he's just taken to the Premier League so well, and he's he's just got this aura about him I really like. It would have been Van der Ven if he was fit the whole season. It might have been Maddison, but they've been out for such a long time. I must reserve something though for Papi Sarr, who I think could be Tottenham's key player next season. Spurs look lost without him at times in midfield. He is so special, and Ange loves box-to-box midfielders. I think he could be a key player under Postecoglou.
And I think as well he's gone under the radar quite a bit in terms of teams haven't really spotted him, if that makes sense. But all of us Spurs fans rave about it. I mean, I'm not complaining because he can stay with us, but it kind of feels like that kind of sense. And I'm glad you mentioned Mickey Van der Ven because I call him Daddy Longlegs. But you're right. I think if he managed to not have that major injury at the start of the season, he probably would have, like you said, been player of the season. I've got this question from Georgie, which I'll ask because she's been watching, and it is, who do you think will be the final top 4 teams and in what order? And I know we've just spoken about whether Spurs will be up there, but what do you kind of think?
Well, I mean, I think a lot depends on, how people going on with Europe coming back. I mean, obviously I hope City win it. So I'll go with City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to say, I think Declan Rice is one of the best signings in the summer, and I really wanted him to go to Man City, taking my Sky hat off, because I just think he's so good. I just hope it's City. But if someone says to me, look, it could be Arsenal, I wouldn't rule it out. It's just comes. I think a lot of it comes down to FA Cup and Champions League and maybe games, but. City are looking strong now, and they're doing that surge again, what we saw last season. And Foden's he's in the form of his life. De Bruyne's back, Haaland's back. So you've got to go with City unless they get another injury crisis. And with Rodri there as well, so you've got to go with City.
Definitely, I think I'd go with City as well. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how obviously that kind of pans out. But I kind of want to jump a little bit ahead and kind of end on the summer transfer window in terms of, obviously there's been lots of rumours floating about left, right, centre, as there always does this kind of early on. But there's one that's been coming out is obviously Neto potentially coming to Spurs. Do you think that's something that could become a reality, or do you think other teams within the Prem will probably sniff him up and snap him up?
I think he's on a long list for sure. But the financial figures would have to be right. I think Wolves will be another team who might have to juggle with profit and sustainability. Obviously, he's had a few injuries himself, but I think that forward line will get a bit of a revamp. Might be too strong, but a little lift, and he'd be someone they would consider. Frankie de Jong there's nothing in that. What I was told the other day. But Neto would be he's one of a number on the long list they'd be discussing.
Is there anybody that you've kind of got in mind? Maybe taking your Sky Sports hat on or keeping and put your Spurs one on. Is there someone that you'd like to come to Spurs? Is there anybody that you've been like, oh yeah, definitely want him at Tottenham?
Oh, I've been watching a lot of Plymouth lately, and I like what they're doing. There's some good players in the Championship. And it's hard. It's hard because the way I see it, and I don't want this to be a cop-out, but I will go with whoever they deem right because they're getting it so right. But as I said earlier in the show, I do think they'll go for a few homegrowns. I've been watching a lot of Plymouth, as I was saying, like seeing Ashley Phillips and Devine. I like Morgan Whittaker, so I'll see if they're going to go for any of the youngsters. You would expect them maybe to look for a striker as well this time, because I'm still not overly convinced that Richarlison's going to be the one long term. But I'm going to be a bit of a cop out here and just say I will like whoever they bring in because I back what they're doing at the moment.
To be fair, I don't think it's a cop out. I think at the start of the season, I was like, whoever Andrew wants, he can have him. It's the same with January. Yeah. I think that's kind of how I'm feeling. It almost feels like now the club are giving trust in the managers because of how well Ange is, if that makes sense, how good he is. And I just hope that kind of continues, if that makes sense. But Bridget, I'm not going to keep you for too much longer. I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on again. It's been really good to chat with you. So yeah, where can everybody find you? I know you've got that interview coming out tomorrow with Werner.
Yeah, Timo Werner. I think it's on Sky Sports News at 7, but it'll probably be on social media as well. Yeah. So, and any questions, you can always tweet me. Yeah, sensible ones. They usually are. Yeah, and if you see me at the game, come and say hello.
Amazing stuff. Actually, before we go, I've got this one question from Darren. Now, Darren's in the chat nearly every show, so I'm going to get this one up for him just before we leave. And that is, are you worried about our youth players' pathway maybe blocked by our young signings? That's an interesting one.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think in this country, back in the 90s, used to have reserve team football, and then they scrapped that, and we're doing under 23s now, under 21s. And still so many managers just don't like it, empty stadiums and whatnot. So I think obviously Spurs are so keen on the loans. Saying that, Spurs are doing brilliant in the academy and the under-23s this season. I think that's all to do with this whole group mentality that Spurs have got at the moment. I think, there are some great youngsters coming through. I'm not worried personally. I back them. I think there's enough. I was just having a look today, actually, in the open training when I was there, and Postecoglou's just observing it. There's so many good coaches. I mean, even Ryan Mason knows these players inside out. He knows the kids, and you've got a guy there called Chris Davis, who Swansea were desperate to appoint as manager. Really impressive his coaching today. There's a lot of good people here behind the scenes, and I think, and I sometimes, there's nothing better than seeing someone from the academy come into the first team and playing well. But obviously, when there was an injury crisis, you've got to get them in at the right time, not when someone's like losing or having a bad time. I'm a firm believer in bringing them in at the right time. I don't feel any worry about that, to be honest with you, because I think there's 3 or 4 that are very highly regarded here. But you can count. It's not easy to bring academy players in. It's not so straightforward. You don't see 5 or 6 from the academy at Chelsea or Liverpool or Arsenal. They do get poached from other places. That's the nature of the game, So a long way round of it. No, I'm not concerned really.
It's a good way to answer it. Like you said, I think football can be a cruel game and a very good game. And like you said, we've got a lot of youth players that I think are hopefully going to be embedded into the team in the future to come. It just depends whether somebody else picks them up or whether we find a better alternative. But Bridge, it's been amazing to talk to you again tonight. So thank you so much for joining me. Just kind of let everyone, I'm guessing people know where to find you, but just in case they don't, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, I'm Michael Bridge _ on Twitter. I've got to find the guy so I can get this underscore out of the way. But yes, but no, anyone feel free to comment if you ever have any questions. I'm happy to answer them.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And until next time, hopefully on Monday, we can talk about a win against Wolves, because that'd be lovely. But until next time, come on, you Spurs.